Welcome to NTD Good Morning. Here are today's top stories. President Trump says the U.S. could strike a deal with Cuba while warning Canada against closer trade ties with China. Ukraine's President Zelenskyy says another round of talks between Ukraine, Russia, and the U.S. set for Wednesday. The situation on the ground as the war continues. Tensions remain high in the Middle East. Iran's supreme leader threatens a regional war if the U.S. strikes Tehran. President Trump responds. And a Chinese national is in the spotlight after the FBI and Las Vegas police raid 2 homes, uncovering a possible illegal biological lab. And House lawmakers are returning to Capitol Hill, aiming to end a partial government shutdown that started over the weekend. Democrats rejected fast-tracking the funding bill, slowing the process until at least tomorrow. And thousands of visitors have made their way to Punxatawney, Pennsylvania, to see the famous Groundhog. Will we see an early spring or 6 weeks more of winter?
This is NTD Good Morning, live from our global headquarters in New York City. Here are Stephania Cox and Carrie Dunst.
Good morning. Thanks for joining us. Today is Monday, February 2nd, and you're watching NTD Good Morning. In today's top news, the weather. Forecasters warn freezing conditions will persist across much of the East Coast today, and the outlook for the rest of the month is not looking much warmer. Forecasters say temperatures will begin to inch up through the day today, but they're also warning wind chill will drop to near 0 degrees in North Carolina, saying snow and ice will linger. This because of a weather phenomenon known as a bomb cyclone that hit over the weekend, and it's prompting flight cancellations, icy road conditions for now a second weekend in a row. The National Weather Service recorded record-breaking snowfall in parts of the state. It was the most snow some cities and towns received going back to 1980. Florida, meanwhile, saw snow flurries yesterday as far south as Tampa. Forecasters are expecting a major disruption to the polar vortex, and that's the wind system that keeps freezing air from coming too far south. This is going to mean temperatures from Minnesota all the way down to Georgia will likely be well below average this February. This winter could be one of the coldest in years. More than 100 deaths have been linked to this wintry weather and the storms that were happening in late January. Here's more on that.
Look at it snowing here.
A massive winter storm dropping historic snowfall across the southeast, causing treacherous travel conditions in multiple states.
We're continuing to ask those that don't need to travel to please stay at home.
Overnight into Sunday, portions of Interstate 85 in North Carolina were shut down. More than 100 drivers were stranded amid several crashes. The National Guard was called in to help. Hours later, the highway reopened. Snow totals in a few areas reaching well over a foot.
In eastern North Carolina, we don't have the equipment like other parts of the country that do see substantial amounts of snowfall.
This system grew into a bomb cyclone, also unleashing hurricane-force winds.
So there's one of those powerful wind gusts.
Many coastal communities worried about high tides and flooding.
This is a passing coastal low that always brings us concern about beachfront erosion.
This storm also plunging temperatures below freezing.
Most people aren't going out just because we don't even have the, gear, the coats and the gloves and stuff to handle being outside when it's this cold.
Crews using a blowtorch to melt this frozen water fountain in Virginia. Even Tampa, Florida, seeing snow flurries Sunday. The frigid cold is expected to linger across the south and east for several days.
And in Nashville, around 30,000 people were still without power yesterday. Mayor Freddie O'Connell told reporters that the Nashville Electric Service failed to previously share information that could have impacted how the city addressed the crisis. In a social media post, Tennessee Senator Marsha Blackburn accused the electric service of focusing on DEI initiatives instead of preparing for the winter storm. The NES says it is working to restore power across the city, and it estimates full restoration should be complete within about a week. And now we move on to the partial government shutdown that kicked in over the weekend. It's expected to last until at least tomorrow. Republicans aim to fast-track a vote, but the Democrats, they want a full debate. NTD's Melina Weisskopf brings us more on that.
The U.S. House back in session this week, lawmakers immediately facing the task of reopening the government after a partial weekend shutdown. Senators approved a last-minute deal to fund most of the government. They temporarily extended DHS funding to give more time for lawmakers to negotiate changes to ICE policy.
Our intention is by Tuesday, all agencies of the federal government, except for that one, and then we'll have 2 weeks of good faith negotiations to figure it out.
But Republicans are expected to have to rely on only their party to reopen. House Democrats made clear they don't want to use the 2-week period to find a bipartisan solution on how ICE operates, instead demanding immediate changes.
Body cameras should be mandatory. Masks should come off. Judicial warrants should absolutely be required, consistent with the Constitution in our view.
I'm not just a no, I'm a firm no, and I'm going to advocate with colleagues that they vote no.
Without Democrat support, Republicans cannot lose more than a single vote to approve the funding package due to their bare-bones majority.
The Democrats play games with this, and I think it's very unfortunate because what they're doing is they're jeopardizing services to the American people. When you're talking about the Department of Homeland Security, remember what's included in that. You have TSA agents for the airports. You have the Coast Guard. You have FEMA. We're in the middle of a winter storm disaster on the East Coast. We can't play games with this.
The House Speaker and other Republicans have indicated support for changes to ICE, like mandating that immigration officers wear body cameras. But the demand to remove masks and expand warrants will be tougher to address. Johnson argued that masks protect agents from harassment, and expanding warrants could make immigration enforcement more difficult. Reporting from Washington, D.C., Melina Weiskup, NTD News.
Now we move to Capitol Hill, where the House will begin to work today on a Senate bill to end the partial government shutdown. The shutdown began just after midnight on Saturday. It impacts several departments, including Defense, Homeland Security, and Health and Human Services. The House Rules Committee is expected to take up the bill this afternoon with a full House vote planned for tomorrow. The measure would fund most agencies for the rest of the fiscal year while extending Homeland Security funding for just 2 weeks to allow for further negotiation. Democrats are pushing for changes to immigration enforcement. Meanwhile, House Democratic leadership has not publicly supported the measure, but Speaker Mike Johnson says he's confident the shutdown will end tomorrow. President Trump has urged lawmakers from both parties to support the bipartisan compromise. And President Trump is optimistic the U.S. will make a deal with Cuba, and the president has some words of warning for Canada on China. NTD's Dana Monahan reports on that, plus a major World Trade Organization decision on U.S.-China trade.
President Trump yesterday discussed the effects of Maduro's capture on Cuba and the blockade that preceded it.
Well, Cuba's a failing nation. It has been for a long time, but now it doesn't have Venezuela to prop it up. So we're talking to the people from Cuba, the highest people in Cuba, to see what happens.
Trump says he wants Cubans who fled to the U.S. to be able to return.
They have their family there. They haven't been able to see them in years, many, many years. So I think we're going to make a deal with Cuba. It's in bad shape. Cuba's in bad shape. Cuba has a humanitarian problem.
Cuba has long relied on Venezuela for energy. In 2025, Venezuela supplied roughly 1/3 of the island's daily oil needs.
They have no money, they have no oil. Venezuela, they live off Venezuelan money and oil.
Trump said last week tariffs would be imposed on imports from countries that supply Cuba with oil.
Turning to Canada, President Trump on Saturday said the U.S. would respond in a significant way if Canada proceeds with the trade agreement it negotiated with China.
If they do a deal with China, yeah, we'll do something very substantial. Because we can't look. I have a great relationship with China, President Xi, but we don't want China to take over Canada.
Trump last week said he would impose 100% tariffs on Canada if it follows through on a trade deal with China. And an update from the World Trade Organization, the U.S. says WTO rules are inadequate after the group sided with China in a dispute. The WTO has issued findings that upheld China's claims that certain U.S. tax credit programs discriminated against Chinese products. U.S. Trade Representative Jamieson Greer responded sharply, saying current WTO rules fail to address China's massive and harmful excess capacity, especially in energy technology. Greer said the ruling penalizes the U.S. for defending industries Beijing has targeted for global dominance, while ignoring the damage caused by China's industrial policies. China filed the challenge in 2024, arguing that IRA tax credits unfairly excluded Chinese-made goods. A WTO panel was established later that year, ultimately siding with Beijing.
Under WTO rules, subsidies for domestic goods are allowed only under narrow exceptions, such as being necessary to protect public morals. Daniel Monahan, NTD News.
Thanks to Daniel for that report. And another round of talks between Ukraine, Russia, and the U.S. set to take place this week. In the meantime, Ukraine says Russia is escalating the war with continued strikes. Here's more on that.
Trilateral talks between Russia, Ukraine, and the U.S. are set for this Wednesday. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy confirmed yesterday that his team would be on their way to the United Arab Emirates.
There is already an agreement on a meeting, a trilateral meeting at the appropriate level. This meeting will take place next week, as planned, on Wednesday and Thursday in the Emirates, like last time.
In a post on X, Zelenskyy said Ukraine is ready for a substantive discussion with the goal of moving closer to a dignified end to the war. He said he expects the U.S. delegation will push for de-escalation.
We expect that the American side will be just as active, and in particular, this concerns de-escalation measures, reducing strikes. A lot depends on what the American side will succeed in so that people trust both the process and the results, of course.
U.S. Envoy Steve Witkoff said he held productive meetings on Saturday with Russian envoy Kirill Dmitriev in Florida. He was joined by Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, White House Senior Advisor Josh Grunbaum, and Jared Kushner. Zelensky's comments came after Ukraine's emergency services said a Russian drone strike killed 12 mine workers in the city of Dnipro. Officials said the strike hit a bus owned by Ukraine's largest private energy company. The company called the incident a large-scale terrorist attack. Zelenskyy commented on the attack, accusing Russia of trying to escalate the conflict.
Today's Russian attack on a bus in the Dnipro region is a crime, a brazen crime, which once again demonstrates that Russia is responsible for the escalation. Evil must stop.
Hours earlier, authorities reported that Russian drones injured 6 people at a maternity hospital in southern Ukraine. Meanwhile, residents of Kyiv say they are still struggling with ongoing power and heating cuts. This comes after the Kremlin said it agreed to temporarily stop targeting energy infrastructure at the request of President Trump.
To be honest, it doesn't feel like it, because there are still problems. There is no electricity and no heating. Sometimes it's on, sometimes it's off, and right now it's difficult.
The mayor of Kyiv said around 1,000 apartment buildings remained without heating yesterday. Temperatures in the city hovered at around 5 degrees as workers raced to restore heating. Meanwhile, Elon Musk says moves by SpaceX to stop unauthorized Russian use of its internet system, Starlink, seem to have worked. Kyiv's military relies on tens of thousands of satellite-based Starlink internet connections for battlefield communication and for piloting some drone missions. It said last week that it found Starlink terminals on long-range drones used in Russian attacks. SpaceX has maintained it does not sell or ship Starlink to Russia and does not do business of any kind with the Russian government or its military. Ukraine's defense minister said Kyiv was developing a system that would allow only authorized Starlink terminals to work on Ukrainian territory.
And a 5-year-old boy and his father have returned to their home in a Minneapolis suburb. They were detained by immigration officers last month. On Saturday, a federal judge ordered the release of the boy and his father from a family detention center in Texas. Here's that story.
The boy and his father, Adrian Conejo Arias, had been in custody for more than a week at the South Texas Family Residential Center in Dilley, Texas, following an ICE operation in Minnesota. The incident was the subject of much controversy and misinformation, as well as criticism from anti-ICE groups. ICE deportation chief Marcos Charles said last week that agents were targeting the boy's father, an illegal immigrant from Ecuador. According to federal officials, the boy's father fled the scene when officers arrived, abandoning the child in a vehicle. Chief Marcos Charles said ICE tried but were unable to return the young boy to his family, who refused to open the door when officers approached the house. In Saturday's release order, the federal judge criticized the federal government's actions. The order states the father and son must be released as soon as practicable and no later than Tuesday, while their immigration case proceeds through the court system. The Department of Homeland Security says parents who are subject to deportation may decide whether they want their children to be removed with them or stay in the United States with a guardian designated by the parent.
And Secretary of Homeland Security Kristi Noem is looking to dispel what she calls the media's lies about the work her department is doing. Speaking to Fox News yesterday, Noem said the DHS has been finding children who had been trafficked and is reuniting them with their families. She also addressed allegations that immigration agents have been given quotas for deportations after the highly publicized case of one 5-year-old from Minneapolis who was taken into ICE custody, as we just heard.
Is there a quota that you're getting from the White House that you have to meet? Or are you just addressing crime and criminals as you see as they come to your awareness?
No, Rachel, there's no quotas. And let me be clear, these families always get the opportunity to stay together. This child has been with his father, which was the father's choice. We offered them the opportunity to go home, to send them back to their home country if they would like to. The father chose to stay, and therefore we're following the legal process. You've heard about all these children that we found and returned. We actually have countries that are asking for their children back.
Noem accused the media of lying about the work DHS does to bring dangerous criminals to justice. She added that the Trump administration is giving illegal immigrants the opportunity to self-deport and offering them a $2,600 reward for doing so. And the FBI and Las Vegas Metro Police are investigating a possible illegal biological lab after raiding 2 homes in East Las Vegas. Authorities say the operation may be linked to the illegal Biolab that they uncovered in Reedley, California back in 2023.
We're at the Sugar Springs Drive home. Our teams went inside and found evidence of possible biological material, including refrigerators with vials containing unknown liquids.
Our laboratory division in Quantico offers a range of specialized services routinely used to advance complex cases, including our evidence response team, Scientific Response Analysis Unit, and the Technical Hazards Response Unit.
Hazardous materials teams were called to the scene. Property records show the home is owned by an LLC, and that's tied to David He. That is an alias used by Jiabei Zhu, the Chinese national who was arrested in 2023 on federal charges. The charges involved misbranded medical devices and false statements to the FDA. Police say at least one person has been arrested, though no identity has been released so far. The investigation is ongoing. Next, Republicans' slim majority in the U.S. House got even tighter over the weekend. Democrat Christian Menefee won a special election in Texas on Saturday. Menefee will replace Congressman Sylvester Turner, a Democrat who died back in March. At a victory celebration, Menefee promised to rein in President Trump's immigration crackdown. Once Menefee is sworn in, the Republican majority in the House now shrinks to just 4. Another Texas Democrat won a state Senate special election on the same day. Taylor Remitt flipped a Texas district that Trump won by 17 percentage points in the 2024 election. President Trump told reporters the state Senate loss was too bad, and he explained his position on it.
You mean I won by 17 and this person lost? Things like that happen.
Does it worry you about the
Well, you don't know whether or not it's transferable. You know, I'm not on the ballot, so you don't know whether or not it's transferable. If you put the Democrats in, you'll end up with open borders again. You'll end up with crime all over the place. We have no crime anymore. And I mean, think of it. The country has the lowest crime it's had in 125 years. In recorded history. The year 1900. That's a long time ago.
And coming up, tensions remain high in the Middle East as Iran's supreme leader threatens a regional war if the U.S. strikes Tehran. This comes as a deadly explosion in Iran, killing 1 and injuring 14 others. And the U.S. is looking to reestablish its embassy in Venezuela after 7 years as it expands its presence in the country, and President Trump praising the country's new leadership. We'll be right back. Welcome back to NTD Good Morning. I'm Carrie Dunst. Tensions remain high in the Middle East as Iran's supreme leader has now threatened a regional war should the U.S. strike Tehran. NTD's Jason Perry brings us more.
On Sunday, Iran's supreme leader Ali Khamenei addressed the situation.
The Iranian nation will strike a strong blow against anyone who attacks and harasses them. Also, Americans should know that if they start a war, this time it will be a regional war.
President Trump previously warned Iran about shooting peaceful protesters, although Iran International says Tehran killed over 36,000 protesters. Trump also threatened U.S. military action if a deal was not reached to stop Iran from obtaining nuclear weapons. Recent satellite imagery shows some activity around two of Iran's nuclear facilities, such as putting roofs over certain areas to prevent satellites from seeing what's happening on the ground. President Trump on Sunday was asked about the Iranian Supreme Leader's threat of regional war if Iran is attacked.
We have the biggest, most powerful ships in the world over there, very close, a couple of days, and hopefully we'll make a deal. If we don't make a deal, then we'll find out whether or not he was right.
The U.S. military currently has 1 aircraft carrier, 6 destroyers, and 3 littoral combat ships in the region.
I think President Trump is wise enough to make a correct decision.
Iran's Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi added this about reaching a possible nuclear deal with the U.S.
President Trump said no nuclear weapons, and we fully agree with that. Of course, in return, we expect sanction lifting. So that deal is possible.
Meanwhile, Qatar's foreign ministry said the country's prime minister was in Tehran this weekend and met with Iran's top security official, Ali Larijani. Qatar said the two reviewed efforts to de-escalate tensions in the region. Jason Perry, NTD News.
Thanks to Jason for that report. And Iran says it is examining its diplomatic processes to manage tensions with the U.S. Amid a military buildup by the U.S. Navy near Iran, President Trump told reporters last week that Iran was seriously talking with Washington. An Iranian Foreign Ministry spokesperson said today that regional countries have been the go-between for these messages. He said his ministry is looking at the details of the various exchanges in hopes of a result in the coming days. Next, we move to Venezuela, where a major shift in U.S. relations. U.S. envoy Laura Dogu has arrived in Caracas as Washington moves to reopen its embassy for the first time in nearly 7 years. It signals a major step for the U.S. as it works to restore diplomatic ties after a long freeze. Over the weekend, President Trump spoke about warming relations with Venezuela after the capture of the longtime regime leader, Nicolas Maduro. Here's the president.
And we're getting along very well with the leadership of Venezuela. They're doing a really good job. We're going to be selling a lot of oil, and we'll take some, and they'll take a lot. And they're going to do very well. They're going to make more money than they've ever made. And it's going to be beneficial to us. We're going to really, I think Venezuela is really going to turn around. You know,
Venezuela's foreign minister welcomed Dogu's arrival. He called it part of a working agenda between the two countries aimed at rebuilding ties and resolving differences through diplomatic dialogue. The U.S. and Venezuela cut diplomatic relations back in 2019 after Maduro ordered a break and both countries closed their embassies. That's after President Donald Trump backed an opposition leader who declared himself Venezuela's interim president. Dogu's visit comes after a U.S. State Department team traveled to Venezuela earlier this month. It's the first such trip since Maduro was captured. Secretary of State Marco Rubio confirmed during a Senate hearing last week that Dogu would ultimately operate out of Venezuela. He added that Washington plans to establish a diplomatic presence in the country very quickly. Meanwhile, President Trump was asked about Venezuela's opposition leader, Maria Machado, and whether she should return to the country. Here's his response.
I think she's a very fine person. But I think I have to say at the same time, the current leadership is doing a very good job.
Since Maduro's capture last month, the Trump administration has moved quickly to establish more presence in the country. Venezuela's acting president, Delcy Rodriguez, has already taken steps favorable to Washington. She changed some laws to make it easier for foreign companies to operate in the country's oil sector.
And a defense company from Australia is planning a move to Europe. Electro-Optic Systems makes high-energy laser defense systems, and the company says Ukraine has requested the technology. Here's more on that.
The Australian-based company making these laser weapons may soon call Europe home, in a strategic pivot that could boost Europe's defense buildup and offer a cost-effective countermeasure for Ukraine. Electro-Optic Systems, or EOS, plans to relocate its headquarters and stock market listing to Europe within a year, which, if done, would make them the first major defense company to move permanently to Europe. It produces the Apollo high-energy laser weapon, which uses an invisible and silent beam of light to burn through targets, sending drones tumbling to the ground. CEO Andreas Schwer claims it's a superior and much less expensive alternative to conventional rockets, missiles, and guns, encountering the growing threat of drone warfare.
The laser is extremely cheap because there is no ammunition supply needed. You can shoot down a drone for a cost of the energy, which is between $1 and $5 per shot.
EOS's product could get a real-world test in Ukraine. Schwer says it has received requests for the Apollo weapon from the Ukrainian government, but has yet to find a country willing to foot the bill, despite offering discounted prices. He adds that most of their Western European partners want to test and verify the system themselves before funding it for Ukraine, though they are not yet deployed at scale. And Europe's high-energy laser programs remain largely in prototype or research and development. Schwer says EOS production and engineering facilities are already being set up in Germany, and that they are in talks with 10 European governments about future orders.
And up ahead, President Trump has announced Fed Reserve Chair Powell's successor as Kevin Warsh. We're going to speak to an economic analyst to break down the president's pick and what it could mean for your financial outlook. And the Trump Kennedy Center in Washington is going to shut down for 2 years starting this July 4th for major renovations. More on the plans after the break. Welcome back to NTD Good Morning. The Trump Kennedy Center in Washington will be closed for 2 years starting this July 4th for renovation work. President Trump, chairman of the center's board, said the decision was made following a year-long review of the center. The review involved contractors, musical experts, art institutions, and other advisors and consultants. Trump says the move will take a tired, broken, and dilapidated center and turn it into a world-class bastion of the arts, music, and entertainment. Renovations will commence once the center closes in July. The president says financing is already fully in place, and he did not specify how much the renovation is going to cost. Kennedy Center President Richard Grinnell said the center desperately needs the renovation. And Melania has had a huge opening weekend at the box office. The documentary earned more than $7 million, and that's the largest opening for a nonfiction film in a decade. Kevin Wilson, who's the head of domestic distribution at Amazon MGM, said Melania exceeded expectations. Directed and produced by Brett Ratner, the documentary opened in more than 1,700 theaters nationwide. It follows the First Lady in the days before the start of President Trump's second term at the White House. Initially projected to make between $2 and $5 million on opening weekend, Melania outgrossed a previous record, which was set by Angel Studios' After Death, that movie back in 2023. The documentary performed particularly well in red states like Texas and Florida. At the premiere, the First Lady said she was very proud of the film. President Trump called it a must-see. And the Philadelphia Auto Show is happening right now, and for the entire first week of February, NTD was there to speak with some of the visitors and capture a glimpse of this year's hottest cars. NTD's Sean Marshall has more.
Once again, the Auto Dealers Association of Greater Philadelphia brings the latest and greatest in the auto world to the public through the Philadelphia Auto Show, a Philadelphia tradition since 1902. And this year's event is the biggest it's been since the times of COVID.
Oh, it's very cool. It's a bit like an amusement park for adults.
And it's not just an amusement park for adults. This also has some amusement for the kids. Whether it's electric, gas, or hybrid vehicle, the Philly Auto Show has it all. People usually prefer one over the others.
I'd say probably the gas or the hybrid. I don't know if I'd want to do an all-electric, because what if we're going somewhere and it runs out of power and we got nowhere to charge it? I guess it's like more so I just want to make sure I get to my next destination without not being able to get there because we're out of a charge kind of thing.
I mean, I would drive an all-electric vehicle if it was, if it worked and it had good mileage and all that, I don't really have a preference as long as it kind of makes sense for, economy-wise.
I'm not really a, electric cars. Maybe I'd do a hybrid, but I'm more a gas person. Running out of battery, how the distance, how long, how far you can go.
Charging stations.
Yeah, charging stations, the cost of, of that, and setting it up at home, how that would work. So that's what I think about.
Another hot topic that continues to circulate is self-driving vehicles. Attendees gave some of their thoughts and opinions on them.
I think I'm starting to get used to the idea a little bit, I haven't heard of any accidents, so, I think it'd be pretty neat to be in one, A friend of mine has a Tesla, and he drove all the way from the suburbs of Philly to Philly. He let it drive itself. So it's kind of cool.
I don't trust it. I guess I just have to educate myself more, of it, but I like to be in control of what I'm driving.
No, on our way over here today, I was driving and we actually had someone on the highway cut into our lane, and I was able to take evasive action and get out of the way, and that's reason number one why I would not trust the EV, because I don't think the EV would have done it. I don't think it would have done it fast enough. No way. Not the EV, I'm sorry, the self-driving car. I don't think a self-driving car would have got out of the way. Nope, not happening.
Nope, I'll drive myself. I enjoy it. It's a fun time. Appreciate the Philly Auto Show. It's always a good time to come over with the kids, let them run around.
Some of these beautiful exotic cars are for sale if you have a couple of $1 million laying around. The 2026 Philly Auto Show runs from January 31st to February 8th. Sean Marshall, NTD News.
And thanks to Sean for that fun report. And following President Trump's well-documented frustrations with Jerome Powell, the Federal Reserve Chairman, that he appointed in his first term, he's now nominated Powell's successor as Kevin Warsh. Who is Warsh, and what direction could he take the Fed, and how did he earn the president's trust? Joining us to break it all down and what it could mean for your financial outlook is Sarah Foster. She's an economic analyst over at Bankrate. Sarah, thanks for joining us this morning. Can you give us a little background on Warsh and how he was able to earn Trump's trust?
Thank you so much for having me this morning. Kevin Warsh is someone whose name has been floating around Fed circles for 20 plus years now. He has a resume that looks a lot like Powell's. He's a Stanford grad. He went to law school. He was also previously a Fed governor during the thick of the financial crisis and the Great Recession from 2006 to 2011. And, I think the way he gained the president's trust, the president has been a huge critic of Fed Chair Jerome Powell and hasn't been very easy on the central bank. He is someone who apparently also agrees with the president's willingness to lower interest rates. He looks at inflation. He thinks that interest rates can still come down a little bit. But of course, when we look at what his opinions were when he was on the central bank all those years ago, they're a little bit different today than they were back then. And that's probably where he's going to face a lot of pressure to prove that he will be independent from the White House.
Very interesting, Sarah, and I want to explore that further. So as you point out, Warsh has aired these criticisms over the Fed's handling of things. Based on his public comments, what reforms are you expecting?
We are looking really at, what kind of leader Kevin Warsh will be at bringing the committee to a consensus. So the Fed chair isn't necessarily more important than anybody else. I kind of think of him as, like a front man for a band. He's like Mick Jagger, if you listen to the Rolling Stones, Kurt Cobain, if you're more of a Nirvana fan. He's someone who is kind of the communicator in chief. But we also know that policymakers are pretty worried about lowering interest rates more right now because inflation is still above the Fed's target. So whether Kevin Warsh can come in and kind of persuade officials to see things from his point of view is going to be crucial if he's going to deliver those aggressively lower interest rates that the president wants. And the second kind of thing that I think we're looking at is a little bit more on the wonkier side, but it's about quantitative easing at the Fed. Kevin Warsh has been very critical of the Fed's bond buying programs, its massive asset-backed quantitative easing programs that really pushed longer-term interest rates like mortgage rates lower. He thinks the Fed should start to trim some of its balance sheet, which would, by effect, decrease the size of the money supply. It's very complicated, but to kind of put it into perspective for consumers, it's basically a step that could result in ultimately higher mortgage rates or higher interest rates because it's very complicated and difficult for the Fed to play out.
Yeah, very interesting analogy as well. Cobain, I don't know if he made it to his 30s. Mick is now, I think, in his 80s and looks more youthful than ever. Warsh himself has quite a youthful look. And I want to explore that topic you brought up because, as you point out, the Fed isn't ruled by its chair. You said it's the front man, it's the Jagger. The Board of Governors, when Warsh comes in and he tries to move it in a particular direction, what would that look like? What does the current body of board governors look like on the Fed?
Yeah, so Kevin Warsh is one of 12 other votes. During any given time, there are 7 members of the Board of Governors who vote permanently on interest rate decisions. And then there's 5 regional reserve bank presidents. And if you were kind of going to stack all these faces side by side, to kind of arrange them by their views, you would find that there are, generally speaking, more hawkish presidents who are more worried about inflation. And then some of the more labor market focused officials are those on the Fed's 7-member Board of Governors. Of course, though, Kevin Warsh might not be the only official that President Trump gets to appoint. There could potentially be 2 more open seats on the Fed's board. We're waiting to hear, of course, the results of a Supreme Court oral argument. The Supreme Court is currently considering whether President Trump has the power to fire Fed Governor Lisa Cook over allegations of mortgage fraud that he raised and his administration raised about a year ago over the summer. Then, of course, the next question is whether Fed Chair Jerome Powell himself will stay on the Fed's board, because he's not just the chair, but he's also serving a role as governor. And if those 3 seats were to open up, then you could be potentially looking at a completely different committee, because the president would have the opportunity to appoint the majority of those officials.
Wow, and of course, the president has had the luck of the draw when it came to Supreme Court nominations, now potentially with the ability to put his stamp on the Fed makeup. Now, one of Trump's main criticisms of the Fed and Jerome Powell was that when it comes to positive growth, they wouldn't feed that growth by also dropping interest rates for this constant fear over inflation. The president arguing that you can have both. Does Warsh see eye to eye on this point? And if so, and they could achieve that, what would that mean for middle-class families?
It's difficult. As many Americans might know, the Fed has 2 goals. It's stable prices and maximum employment. They don't necessarily have a GDP target. So in theory, you could have massive growth and still lower interest rates. What really comes down to, though, is whether that growth is fueling inflation. And if it's paired with something like a productivity boom, that's something that Kevin Warsh has actually argued why you might be able to see lower interest rates even if the economy is growing. It's where the rubber meets the road, I think, is going to be a little bit difficult because we haven't really seen any economic evidence of that yet. And of course, as there's been lots of optimism about AI, whether it's going to power the economy as strongly as many analysts and companies hope is another question. And I think what Fed governor, when he was a governor, Kevin Warsh kind of talked about a lot was actually the complete opposite. He was worried about inflation even at a time when unemployment was 9%. So it's a little bit different than how he viewed things a few years ago. But of course, hindsight is 20/20. As for middle-class Americans, what I really would always caution them to do is to just make sure that you're taking a long-term perspective, that you're taking steps with your finances. You're going to probably see a lot of different Fed chairs over the years that you're saving for retirement. So if you have, a strategy that really works for you, is diversified, and you have an emergency fund that you can rely on if anything were to potentially go wrong in the economy, then no matter who is the chief central banker, you're going to be in a safe position.
Well, those are some wise words and well appreciated. Sarah Foster, economic analyst with Bankrate. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
And up ahead, thousands of visitors have made their way to Punxatawney, Pennsylvania. They want to see the famous Groundhog. Will he see an early spring, or will it be 6 more weeks of winter? And thousands of canine competitors are lining up in New York City. What goes into crowning America's top dog at the Westminster Kennel Club Dog Show? We're going to have that and more. Stay with us. And welcome back to NTD Good Morning. We're joined by Winnie the Dog and her vet, Dr. Kelly Fishman. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Carrie. Happy to be here.
And you're here for a very special week here in New York City. What's happening?
So it is the 150th Westminster Dog Show. So we have elite canine athletes. One of my patients is actually in the show, a little Pekingese competing right now. Winnie's here with us today to cheer on all the dogs at home and at Westminster.
And I understand Pekingese is not naturally an athletic dog, so you had to do some stuff to get this particular dog ready for competition. What was that like?
Yeah, so they would rather sit on a pillow than go on a treadmill. So we had to do all the exercises that we're doing with Winnie today. We did with that little Pekingese.
And we're going to do a lot of exercises with Winnie here in studio, but first we're going to talk some doggy nutrition, correct?
That's right.
All right, so let's have a look. You've got some supplements here. What do you recommend for dogs besides their food?
So Winnie is a nice, healthy 3-year-old dog. So I recommend that for dogs at home, but also our elite canine athletes. So I have the 3 great ones. One is a muscle supplement made from, if you believe it or not, fertilized egg yolks.
Okay.
They're high in an ingredient that helps to stimulate muscle. So that's a great one. I have her on this. I'm on it. My cat's on it. My patients are on it.
It's good enough for humans. It's good enough for the dog.
That's right. That's right. And then to round it out, something that most people are also on as well, which is omega-3 fatty acids, which is fish oil, anti-inflammatory, good for the brain, heart, skin, everything. Great for overall health. And then fiber. Super important for dogs, super important for us as well. So those are the 3 that I love to recommend to every dog.
And I understand Winnie has recovered from a spinal cord injury. We're going to do some exercises with that. Maybe you could kind of set up the exercises and tell us a little bit about how you coached her back to such great health. I mean, you would never know that she had an injury.
She had a stroke in her spinal cord, and that actually left her unable to walk in her back leg. And we've been going through a series of exercises. Okay, so now I'm going to show you an exercise for bicep strength, lat strength, front body. It's dog push-ups.
I probably could benefit from these as well.
Yeah, so what Winnie's demonstrating is dog push-ups. I'm taking the treat and putting it right between her paws, and you can see she's getting a nice little dip here. A really good, oh, thank you, Winnie, thank you. She just loves them so much. So I have her up here doing her dog push-ups. And now I'm going to show you a really fun one, a big crowd pleaser.
Great.
Okay, this is a roll peanut. And what she's gonna do is she's gonna roll this peanut. Actually, would you hold her for one moment?
My pleasure, my pleasure.
Oh, she's ready
excited.
to go.
She's excited.
Winnie, good girl, up. So.
Oh, wow, look at that.
Yeah, so what she's gonna do is she's gonna roll this little peanut, just like that. Back leg strength, core
go Winnie,
strength.
Go Winnie,
go Winnie.
Do it, yes.
Okay, she's like, give me the treat already. Good girl. Roll
Delayed
peanut.
gratification there, huh?
Yep, so we're gonna give her a big treat here. Monkey sit. Good girl, Winnie. Good girl. I'm going to move this out of the way.
All right.
And then move on to our next exercise. Now, this is cavaletti pulls.
Okay, this looks like, what the football players do in summer training.
Yeah, and they do it to get body awareness, to be really aware of their feet. So that's what we're going to do here with Winnie. And we're going to put her through the pulls a couple times. It's going to be a little bit of a warm-up and also that body awareness warm-up that I was talking about. So as she goes through it, good girl. Good girl.
Nicely done.
Good girl. Good, Winnie.
Now, what was Winnie's rehab process like from her spinal cord injury?
So she did a lot of rehabilitation. Actually, I did acupuncture on her yesterday.
Wow.
Yes, so we were doing all fun things like acupuncture to help with, stimulating the nervous system. Also things like all the exercises. Her mom was a Gold Star owner, and she did all of her exercises at home in her New York Manhattan apartment. She was rolling the peanut. And so you could do all these exercises. It's cold right now. I know you have a dog.
Yeah, Sophie the golden doodle.
So,
and she's not getting, I wish she was getting more exercise in the winter, but I think like a lot of people, now that there's snow and ice everywhere, we're kind of just opening the door, letting her out. She runs right back in, and we'd like to get her some more exercise, but we didn't know that there was indoor doggy exercises we could do.
There's indoor doggy exercises. You can put her on that muscle supplement I talked to you about because it actually helps to build muscle while they're a little bit inactive.
Okay.
So I really love it. So I really suggest exercises indoor. If you have enough space to do it, it'd be a lot of fun.
Can we do another round of exercises here with
Sure,
Winnie?
what would you like to see?
I think let's have her do the agility training again. That's
yeah,
like
actually, do you want to try a dog squat?
Okay, yeah.
All right, let's try
as long
it.
as she's doing the squat, not me.
Winnie, hi. Winnie, sit. Sit. Oh, look at that. Good girl.
Good job, Winnie.
Sit.
Good job. So this is the doggy squat.
Yeah, do you see her going down and then she's coming up? So do you see her kind of dipping back? Good girl. So that's a dog squat. I could do the push-ups again if you'd like.
Sure.
Uh-oh.
Oh, she sees one. She's like, there we go.
Thank you. All right, so we could do a couple more of the pass through the poles.
Yeah, let's do that. Now, compared with what the dogs in the big show do, how do you train a dog for the big Westminster Dog Show?
This is how you do it.
Okay.
These are all the same exercises that you'd see in dogs that are doing agility. So especially rolling the peanut is a perfect one. In fact, Winnie, we don't have it here because it might be a little bit dangerous, but she could actually stand on that peanut.
Wow.
Yeah, and do sits.
Maybe we could do, is she getting fatigued or can we do one more round on the peanut?
Yeah, let's do it. Come on, Winnie.
Go, Winnie.
All right, thank you, Carrie. Winnie, see, you already know how to do all these things. Good girl. So just like that, have her roll.
Wow. I don't know who's getting more of a workout, the dog or the trainer in this instance. The focus that's required for this seems pretty intense.
It is pretty intense. It's a very active job.
And where can you get all of the equipment so that you can do indoor dog training?
Absolutely. So a lot of this is available on Amazon. Okay, so you could do that. Everything is available on Amazon.
Okay, like everything else that seems to be arriving at my house every day.
But this is a specialty dog equipment. They make special exercise peanuts for dogs and other sorts of things. And then any of the supplements I talked about, those are also available online as well.
Fantastic. And in terms of tomorrow's grand reveal for the winner, the Best in Show, what goes into getting to that final winner for those who aren't familiar with the Westminster Show?
Yeah, so it's not just a beauty pageant, and they're not just walking dogs around on a leash. It's a lot of grooming, exercise, nutrition, training. So there's a lot that goes into it that people have no idea.
Wow.
So this is what you saw today is what goes into it.
So it's the athletics, the ability to, on command, sit and stay and move, but then also there is a bit of a beauty pageant to it, right? And that's where all the supplements come in. And
yeah, and all the supplements are also like a health, not only do they make the dog look good, have good muscle tone, have a nice luscious coat, but they actually make the dog feel good too inside. Especially the omega-3 fatty acids and that other supplement to help support muscle too.
Now, if you can, I'd love for you to tell a little bit about your client.
Yeah.
Who is not even, I think she's 12, right?
That's right. So she's a junior handler.
Okay.
So people under 18 compete as junior handlers, and she's the #1 junior handler on a Pekingese.
Okay.
Yeah, and she's competing as we speak.
That's amazing that a 12-year-old is here showing a dog and is in competition.
Yeah.
And for somebody who may want to get into dog handling, they love pets, but it seems like there's a big gap between being a pet lover and being able to show dogs. How did your 12-year-old client, how did she even decide to get into dog handling?
So she came from a family that had a bunch of pugs, and she's like second generation. She was inspired by her mom to do the dog show. She started at 9 years old. And it really takes a long time to learn how to do all this stuff and then get the right dog. So she's been working up to this since she was 9 to be a junior handler at Westminster.
Wow, so top tip for somebody who is interested in becoming a dog handler, what would you recommend?
Well, I would say one of the best things she did was to get
Hi, Winnie.
Winnie was to find a mentor in the field.
Okay.
So that's a great thing, and like I said, the future of dog sports, conformation dog handling, like this is it. It's nutrition, it's exercise, just like our elite athletes, like our football players. Like that's so important to them. It's also important to dogs too.
So would you call it a sport or is it a cultural event?
Oh no, it's a sport. Oh, this is a sport. Yeah.
Well, there you go. There you go. And we've seen the training process that goes into it. And like any athlete, it's not just what you do on the field, it's what you do in the kitchen.
Yes, exactly. That's right.
And so as we start to wind up, Kelly, what would you recommend to all those people who they're not looking to get into dog handling or what have you, but they love their dog and it's a colder winter and they're not really sure how to get their dog all the things that they need because, they just don't want to be outside.
Yeah.
How can they take better care of their dog this winter?
Okay, Winnie. So basically what I would suggest is, doing the exercises like I said. And then one of the things they want to do, I do really love that fertilized egg yolk powder called Mayo's Pet. I would really suggest that for everybody. And fish oil.
Fish oil, good for humans, good for pets.
Yes, absolutely.
Well, thank you so much for bringing Winnie by. This has been the most fun I've had here in a long time.
I think Winnie's having fun too.
And we do have to wrap up the show now. But thanks for watching so much. I'm Carrie Dunst. We're going to see you real soon. Tune in for Westminster's Winner tomorrow.
Hey,
thank you, Winnie. Yeah, thanks for coming by.